Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The department want to welcome everyone here to this exciting presentation. In collaboration with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging, we're presenting Leonardo Vásquez Chacón, and he is a music fellow at Boston Symphony Orchestra. He will talk a little bit about his fellowship program as well as a little bit about his life growing up in Peru. But first, we're very excited he's going to play for us. So please join me in welcoming Leo.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. Like Carmen said, I'm just going to quickly start talking about the fellowship, then I'm going to jump into a little bit of my journey into music, which was kind of like up and down. And then I'll close it up, coming back to the fellowship, telling you exactly what I do, and also talking about the demographics and how diversity has started growing in the world of classical music. So yeah, I'd love if you thank you. So, yes, that's me on the right, far right of both pictures. On the left is my brother, actually. We both started playing when we were like, he was 4, I was 5 or 6, in Lima. And I'll explain what this funny picture down here is. It has something to do with it. So my parents are not, my family is not of musicians. My grandmother used to play piano in Argentina where she grew up, but that's about it. She wasn't a professional pianist. But she was kind of the force in my family saying like, hey, in their elementary school, they could learn violin or piano or guitar. So we gotta give them something. So I chose violin for some reason. I think I didn't want to play piano or guitar because I thought that everyone else already played that. I think that was my motivation as a 6-year-old. Eventually I switched to viola when I was like 15. That's still when I was in high school, but all the way up until I was finishing high school, I wasn't thinking about music in a serious way because my family, like I said, they were not musicians. I had only been taking private lessons at my school. I hadn't been to the National Conservatory, and I just had no idea of what it meant to pursue music. So I actually went to med school, and that's the only picture I could find of myself with the robe properly in the lab, in which I wasn't making a funny face. I'm actually making a funny face in that one too, and that's why I put it kind of small. But it's just to show you that I actually went to medical school in Peru. Only for a year, and then like the beginning of my second year. In the beginning of my second year, I did work with bodies and everything, so I did see that part of things, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. It's not that I didn't like it. I still love biology and anatomy and all these things, but that first year of med school is when I actually started hanging out with more musicians than I ever had. Out of coincidence, I just happened to talk to some of them. Like they said, like, hey, come hang out. They invited me to try to audition to the youth symphony, and I did, and I was playing with them now. And so through my first year of med school, I was half of the day trying to go to class, and then in the afternoons playing music or going to the youth symphony. And that's kind of when things started shifting, and then that's when I started meeting more musicians and understanding what it meant to pursue classical music. So I quit med school by my second year, and that's when my second year. That's when I started taking things more seriously, and there was a national conservatory in Peru in those days. That same year, the university where my parents did their undergrad also had just started a music school. So because of that connection, they thought, oh, maybe you should also go to where we went to school for it, now that they have a music program. So that's me playing with a string quartet back in those days. And eventually, through connections, I started meeting more musicians, like I said, and I started doing my first gigs. That's a picture with, it's not the National Symphony exactly, but it's a lot of musicians from the National Symphony, including my teacher from back in those days. And it's basically like a professional orchestra with musicians from different places of Lima. And so I started getting into that scene more and more, and that was the agreement basically with my teacher, when I talked to my parents and my teacher all together saying, okay, I'm quitting med school, was that if I can, I should try to go get my studies in the US because we had connections there, or maybe in Europe. It ended up happening in the US, which I'm very happy about. And I ended up going to Indiana University. And before I get there. So a couple of things happened in that time before I went to do my undergrad in Indiana. They had the National Symphony was hosting a competition or an event called Young Soloists where you would play and they would let you play a concerto with them. So I was one of the winners that year in 2000. was in 2009. No, sorry, 2010. 2010, that's when that happened. So I was lucky to play with them, with the National Symphony as a soloist, and I was like, what? Where am I? Like, it's just things were happening so quickly, and I was very lucky to have all these friends and like connections that I had just built that they were like kind of guiding me through. Okay, maybe you didn't go through the traditional path of going to the conservatory on the weekends and all that, but you can work things out, right? Then on the right, I'm playing with this probably the most famous Peruvian musician internationally, Juan Diego Flores, tenor, who tours all around the world, and he's a big figure. And because of that, a lot of the classical music scene bases itself more on opera than symphonic music. So before I had even played my first Beethoven or Mozart full symphony, I had played full operas by the Italian composers like Rossini or Donizetti, and that was also like, yeah, like I'm saying, my path was just so different from everyone else. Eventually, I auditioned for Indiana University, where I ended up doing both my undergrad and my master's. And that I feel extremely lucky to have been there. It was an amazing school. I met so many colleagues, friends, and mentors there that really pushed me. And actually, my teacher, who were both undergrad and masters, played in the BSO, in the Boston Symphony, for 20 years. And then the year that he quit to go teach in Indiana is that year that I was going to school in Indiana as well. So it was I'm very lucky that I studied under him. His name is Ed Gazuleas, and currently, after Indiana, he went to teach in Curtis, and now he's the director of Tanglewood, the home for the Boston Symphony in the Berkshires, west of here. So yeah, I was just extremely fortunate that year that I went to Indiana, he was also starting to teach as a new teacher, and we bonded really well, and he really worked on me really, and everything that I had missed on when I was growing up musically and in playing wise, he really dedicated himself to work with me on that. After that, I joined this group called the Orchestra Now, which is a pre-professional orchestra that's still going in the Hudson Valley. It's actually an hour west of Tanglewood, where I was talking about, the home of the Boston Symphony during the summers. So it was also kind of close to here. And that group would play in Carnegie Hall or in many other venues. Like they would take us from the Hudson Valley in New York to down to the city to play different concerts. So that's where I met some more people. That's also where I got married, and that's when I started working on my green card. And all of this will come into play into the Boston Symphony Fellowship and the issues of diversity and all this. Just stay with me here. So I was lucky to be in the orchestra now during COVID also, in a way, because a lot of musicians lost their jobs, unfortunately. They stopped paying them during the pandemic. Some others were more lucky and they were able to keep their salaries going or maybe reduce salaries during the pandemic. By being in this group, the Orchestra Now, I was able to as well keep the salary that we had there, along with my fiance at the time. And so that was really also helpful for us during that time. Eventually we came back to playing, and things, like, as you know, got a little better after the pandemic. And then during that time, I was trying to figure out, okay, what's next? During this time, actually my green card, because of the pandemic and because we have been changing addresses a lot, I don't know, maybe some of you have relatives who have gone through this process, but it can be extremely difficult when there is the smallest complication. So because we were in the pandemic and we were shifting addresses all the time, every time you switch addresses, especially if you move across states, they have to move your whole case. Your papers have to go from that state to the next one. So we did that like twice or three times in a really short span of time because we were moving places during the pandemic. That meant that my interview for the green card got placed in the wrong state, and I had to tell them, hey, sorry, we don't live there anymore, it should be on this state. And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we got it mixed up. Eventually we just get a letter in the mail that says, your case is denied. And just no warning, no nothing. This is in 2020. So things are going down with the pandemic, and we get this news, and it's like, we're like just devastated, you know. What do you do from there? And yeah, at the bottom of the piece of paper it says, if you think this was made in error, you may submit a case to appeal and whatnot. So of course we did that. We pushed so hard to that because we knew that we had made no mistakes. We had everything documented. We got in touch with the lawyer. We got it fixed up. So now we were waiting for them to reopen the case so they can hopefully give me the green card to be able to stay for longer. While I was a student in the orchestra now, the orchestra in New York, I was able to stay in the country because of my F1 visa as a student. But if I wanted to get a job of any kind, I had to have some sort of eligibility to work, so the green card was the main reason, right? So while all of these things are happening and my green card is uncertain, I just kept auditioning for things. I didn't care, like, I'm not gonna wait for the green card to show up for me to start trying to get a job or something, right? So I auditioned for a couple orchestras and also fellowships. And the Boston Symphony is very familiar with the term fellowship or fellows because in Tanglewood, their summer home, they host a festival every summer where they have student people who are like in school or finishing or have just finished school, young musicians, and they come and they learn from them and play a lot of concerts with international artists. This is an amazing place, this place, Tanglewood. So I actually had been a fellow in Tanglewood when I was doing my master's in Indiana. So I also have that connection there. And they had just announced a new program, which was the resident fellowship. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. It would be amazing to win that, but I'm gonna do my best, you know. And I still don't know about my green card because if I won that fellowship, I need eligibility to work. So that was all convoluted. But still, I did that, and I happened to win. And I was so like amazed by that, I couldn't believe it. It was like a dream come true. It was me and another guy, Andres Vela, who's a bassist. That was the two of us, the two resident fellows, and the first class of this program. And the amazing part is that this fellowship is supposed to help young musicians from underrepresented communities in classical music, and I'll get to some data in a second. So, because that is the purpose of the program, they actually helped me in the whole legal process that I was dealing with. Basically, I told them the truth. I am so happy and honored to have won this, but I actually can't start yet. I still have some months until it starts, but hopefully my green card gets approved by then. And they actually, because it's such a big organization, it's one of the greatest orchestras in the world, they have politicians that they know and they have a connection with. They actually were able to have a senator send a letter on my behalf to USCIS so that they could accelerate the process or figure out what's going on. And a few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail and it just said like, okay, your case is reopened. And then a few weeks later, they said, okay, your green card is approved, and without even an interview. And of course, I don't know if it's because of the senators that they said you don't need an interview. I believe it's more that they might have seen that I pushed for so many years for my green card through the pandemic and then reopened, and then this thing. So maybe that's why. But anyway, I was extremely happy to get my work permit like a week before the first rehearsal with the BSO. So everything worked like clockwork in that sense. And that first year, that was also when they were going to, on their first tour, international tour after the pandemic. So we went to Japan. That second picture is not in Japan, but the first one is. And that was an amazing experience to go with them and play all this amazing repertoire. Along with all the musicians and the whole crew goes, the librarians, everybody. It's like a whole giant thing. So that was amazing. And since then, I've been playing with them for the past 2 years. And I don't play all the concerts that they do, but I have like a certain amount of weeks. And then, let me go to the next one. Actually, I'm gonna skip this for now. I'm gonna finish wrapping up this topic.
You want to what?
Yeah, no, I'll just keep going forward. One more. I'll just focus on this now, and then I'll go back to the data. So what are the things that I do there? the whole point of this fellowship is to push the fellows into the classical music world because maybe you already know, but it's an extremely competitive field. There are not many jobs. It's not like classical music just prints money or anything. So because of that, I can tell you from my experience and I don't have the exact numbers, but I know of certain orchestral auditions where you have 150 or 200 people auditioning for one spot. So yeah, the odds are really against you, and it's really difficult to make it in this field. So this fellowship wants to do everything it can to facilitate all the, all the logistics of being a person taking auditions and to be able to hopefully win, right? So the way they help you with that is that they give you a stipend or a salary. I forgot to include, they also help you with health insurance, which has also been incredible. After that, I get to play for the musicians from time to time in private lessons. I'm playing one tomorrow and the day after. To play my audition materials for them so that they can give me feedback and so I can do a better job at the auditions. I also meet with, I have a designated mentor who is, checks in with me and we talk about how the auditions are going and think about what the goals should be. They also help me when I have to fly or stay at a hotel. They also have a certain amount of allocated budget to help me pay for the costs for those things, which can be so expensive, especially nowadays. There's also the outreach concerts. We actually, last year, we did, me and Andres, the other fellow, we put up a concert in, I'm forgetting the name, southeast of Boston. Can't remember, but it'll come back to me.
South Shore Conservatory?
Sorry?
The South Shore Conservatory?
No, I'm thinking of a neighborhood. I can't remember. It will come back. We did an outreach concert there where we organized the program. We brought the musicians from the BSO on a bus and we played in a high school there. And we kind of chose pieces and talked about things that we thought that might be interesting to the community that was there. And then, yeah, I perform with them pretty often during the regular season and during the Tanglewood season, which is the summer season. Just so you have an idea, I just played the last 3 weeks with them, and then this week I'm not playing because I actually have an audition in 5 days. So I kind of just like fit in the weeks to benefit my preparation for the auditions. When I don't have one coming up, I play with them a lot. Then when I have one coming up, I'm preparing for the audition mostly, so I don't play with them. So yeah, things go like that. And now if we could go back actually to the graphs. One more. So yeah, well, what is, and this might be new to some of you to talk about these programs or maybe not. So you can see, I hope you can see on the left. This is a study done by a website, we found it on the currently found it on the website called the Violin Channel, that sometimes has analytics or studies on classical music and the symphony world. And this is a study about the growth of demographics or changes in demographics in the past 10 years, from 2012, 13 to 2022, 2023. And you can see over here, right, so up here is, the black line is US population versus the orchestra population. So you can see the changes of how things have been moving, and actually no, this is the graph that doesn't talk about the time. This one is specifically for that year, 2022 and 2023, I'm sorry. So basically what they found is that in the past 10 years, the amount of persons of color who have been joining the symphony orchestras in the United States has been growing. Maybe not as fast as they would like. I also would like to point out that part of the motivation for this growth, the motivation from the orchestras to have this growth in persons of color joining the musicians and staff also, not just the musicians, but the people who manage the orchestra, is that, as you know, not a lot of people come watch classical music concerts, and people are finding that maybe the musical programs that they're putting out are not really connecting to the specific population that orchestra is based in. And in many ways, the goal of the orchestra is to be part of its community. Ideally, it should be part of its community so that more people will come. But what has been happening in the past decades is that the community has been going in one direction and the orchestra has been going the other one or staying in its old way. So basically, there is a whole new trend of trying to modernize the symphony orchestra so that it actually has a connection to the people that live around it. And the reason why I talk about my personal life for this is that so that you have an idea how my family, like I said, they're not musicians. Some of my uncles, aunts, cousins, they still, even though I've said it a million times that I play viola, they still just say violin. And it's not that they don't. It's just a disconnect. There is such a disconnect between the classical music world that I work in versus what they might experience in their daily life and what their interests are. So I think that kind of relates to this idea of how to make what we do in the concert hall relevant to people who probably feel like they have absolutely nothing to do with it. So that's part of what they're trying to do here. Let me go to the next one. Yeah, so, and I think you can read the two that, like I said, it's been growing, but still the majority of the musicians and the members of the board of the staff in the symphony orchestras in the United States tends to be not so many persons of color, but it's been mostly going up. So that's part of the goal of this fellowship. I can tell you that the main way to have a successful musician, the truth is, I think, when you are a child, the way that your parents interact with music and the music education that you have, and how they make you practice, and they make you, they kind of have to be an active participant of your music lessons. I think that's probably the strongest way to have a successful musician. But another way is, like I said, this fellowship is trying to facilitate all the logistics that come into having a successful winner at an audition to take place. So if we can, I think I'll just close it up over here. Yeah, I think that's about it for what I have to say right now. But I definitely am happy to answer questions about anything that I talked about, or even things that I didn't talk about. You can ask me about my instrument or what I played. I mean, I really an open book here. So I know it's always difficult when no one says, "Oh, ask me anything," but I mean it. Any silly question is totally fine with me. If you want to shoot. Yeah, go ahead.
Would you be open to helping with scoring a student film for relevancy and maybe to get some more people already involved?
Scoring a student film?
Like a short film?
Like specifically to play in it or to?
No, so like for like the viola music or something, like what you just played to use in like a student film or something.
Oh, you mean what you like the recording of what I just played?
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, yeah, if we can talk after maybe, and then yeah. I'm not a composer specifically, but I do. Yeah. We can talk at the end. Yeah, please.
Yeah, sounds like you've been quite experienced. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of things in life. I mean, everyone. Yeah, please.
Do you play other instruments?
I used to play violin. I still enjoy playing the violin. I do play piano. I do play some guitar. Winds and brass, percussion, not really. I'm mostly string and piano
Okay,
player.
thank
Yeah.
you.
You said you earned your bachelor's and master's in what?
Sorry.
What did you earn your bachelor's and master's?
Oh, both in music performance. Yeah, viola performance. Yeah, that's what it is. Viola performance. Yeah. And then the orchestra now, the group I was talking about in Hudson Valley, that's also technically a master's degree. It has the longest degree name you'll ever hear. Maybe not, but at least in music. It's called Masters in Curatorial, Critical, and Orchestral Studies. That's the whole degree. Yeah. I think you have a question over here.
Oh, it was the same.
The same question. That's fine. Yeah, or
What is your practice routine like? What do you do with practice routine?
routine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had a whole day devoted to practice, no interruptions.
Yeah,
what would you do today?
I mean, I can give you the theoretical answer.
What's the idea?
Yeah, I mean, it changes a little bit. I mean, I have like some concepts that I try to start with when I practice. I think some of you are musicians too, right? Maybe so, not all of you, but it doesn't matter. I think maybe you are familiar with the concept of, oh, you practice your scales, right? And yeah, I think it's super important. I think it's not ideal to start your playing with scales because actually scales are pretty hard, at least on string instruments. They are like super important to your technique, but there are actually a lot of things happening with how you have to drop your fingers in certain patterns, you have to shift positions. So I don't start with scales. I like to start with little warm-ups to get my blood flowing into my hands and fingers and wrists. I think that's super important. And just, I try to start thinking about my feet, how I'm grounding myself. Of course, I have to tune first before I start playing. But yeah, I do more like exercises to start my practicing, and then I'll probably move into scales or arpeggios. Depends on what I have to prepare for. You know, if I have to play with the BSO, I have to really focus on the music because those guys they just show up to the first rehearsal ready to go. You know, it's not like they show up to the first rehearsal and they go like, oh, who comes in here, who plays first, when do we go like this? No, it's just go. I mean, the level is so high. Sometimes they just present concerts. They could present a concert without a rehearsal on pieces that they've played so many times. So yeah, if I'm preparing for that, I'm mostly going to be focusing on the music for the orchestra. If I'm focusing on an audition, what I have to play is a lot of orchestral excerpts, they call them, which are just parts of a symphony or orchestral work, and they want to see if you can play that straight through, you know, mostly without mistakes. And so yeah, it changes on what I'm doing, but the main thing I think is just exercises for both hands that allow me to feel flexible and warmed up. Yeah.
Do you usually approach all your experts through with a lower tempo, or are you going fast tempo and if you identify a problem, you slow it down?
I think depends on how far in the process of the preparation I am, but it's probably always good to come back to slow. Even if you feel like you're prepared, you should probably go back to feeling everything in a slow tempo. It's a good way to, because sometimes we can rely on our musical, skills or even talent if you want, like to play things. But when you really slow it down, you realize that there might be holes here and there that you're not realizing because you're so used to playing things at tempo or fast or whatever. It's good to bring things down a lot and really see what's going on down, when you play slower. Yep.
Are you typically practicing only a classical repertoire or any sort of modern stuff that you're?
I would say when I say practice, I think of like deconstructing and like really trying to make it like as perfect as I can. I think that process is mostly for classical music because I'm trying to get an orchestra job. But I do enjoy playing other types of music. I just don't spend as much time with it just because it's not what I'm focusing on. But just so you know, I've told you already that my music career was so crazy, but I used to play in a heavy metal band. I used to play electric violin in a folk metal band, believe it or not, in high school.
I don't know if you want to answer this, but do you play by ear or do you read the music?
I mostly read music because that's what I am expected to do in this profession. But no, I do play by ear. I actually enjoy that a lot. Especially when I was younger and I didn't have like a structure to these things. I would just try to play on piano, different things. I would try to play violin music on piano for fun and trying to learn piano by myself. You know, trying to.
I'm always curious about musicians that way.
Yeah. No,
I didn't think you had to answer that.
No, I'm happy to answer that, and I do. During the pandemic, I actually really got into making music arrangements because there was nothing to do, and then it was my grandma's birthday. It was her 90-something, 92nd, 92. I don't know how to say it. Her birthday number 22nd, and I wanted to give her a present, a gift from far away, and I made an arrangement of this folk song that she really loves. She's from the Amazon area in Peru, and I knew that she loved this folk song. And I arranged it for viola and cello because my wife is a cellist, and we played it for her on Zoom, and that was like the start of me during the pandemic having an episode of just I was trying to make arrangements on my computer, like basically turning a song for guitar, voice, and whatever, just for viola or piano or viola and cello, so we could play, and that comes with. You have to, you probably have to use your ear more than your eyes.
For my experience, I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience recording music in the studio setting?
I have actually recorded a lot, but I am not the one who is doing any of the buttons or listening for what's coming out. I've just gone as a player. When I said that I was going to music school before Indiana, when I was in Peru in my parents' university, actually, most of my friends were in the rock, pop, jazz field. There were barely any classical musicians. It was like me, I was the only viola player, there were 2 violinists, there was one cellist. So that quartet that you see there, we were like the classical guys. They would call us like, oh, those classicos, because all of our friends were more like jazz and rock. And in those days, we used to play a lot in like a recording studio. So yeah, I've played in a lot of recordings like that, but I've never been the one who knows what's exactly going on, really. I should. In this day and age, it's important, I think, but yeah. Yep.
What is freelance sort of like for you?
So for most string players, freelancing in the city will probably be gigging, and those gigs are gonna go from wedding gigs, which are pretty good, or receptions where you're just playing for like a cocktail hour or something like that, or also teaching is also part of freelancing. I know a lot of musicians who just teach like from 9 to 6 every day of the week, like weekdays, Monday to Friday or Saturdays, and that's their living, and they make good money with that. Especially if they live in like an expensive city and they can charge a lot to like rich families. I mean, that's definitely been another route that freelancers can take. Yeah.
What's your favorite gig that you've done?
Wow, that's tough. I like traveling, so I've been lucky that through music I was able to go to a couple places. So I still think going to Japan with the BSO was amazing because it was with the BSO, but also Japan was just shockingly beautiful and amazing to be there. I want to take my parents there just because I think it's such an amazing country. They have no connection to Japan, but it's just, I just had such a good time. I've been playing there in so many halls in Tokyo and Kyoto and I don't remember the other ones, but it was multiple cities. And that was, if I can call it a gig, I would say that was some of the best. Yeah, I love that.
Isn't there?
Anybody else?
What's your next audition? You said you had an audition coming
Yeah.
up. Where are you?
Yeah, it's in Ohio. It's the Columbus Symphony for the second chair, the Columbus Symphony. In 5-6 days.
Just to get an idea, what do you have to play? What excerpts and what?
Yeah, so the list for that audition, so because it's a second chair, it's usually called assistant principal. That means that that person sometimes has to play viola solos in case the music demands that the second player plays a solo, or if the principal is not playing that week, then or gets sick, the assistant principal has to play the solo. So it's for that type of job. And what I have to play is the first movement of a concerto, which is like a solo piece that you would normally play with an orchestra, and you just play it yourself there. And then you have to play a Bach piece, which is, I'm going to play that Prelude that I played for you. And then you play 3 orchestral solos, like big orchestra pieces that happen to have a viola solo in the middle. I have to play 3 of those. And then between 9 to 12 orchestral excerpts, which are just like when the whole section is playing a symphony or any big orchestral work, you have to play those by yourself also. I can talk about the audition process if you want. It's like some of the most nerve-wracking thing because you show up and it has to be pretty sterile and cold kind of because they're trying to make it fair for everybody. And so, but because of that, it's also impersonal and very like cold and very, you show up, you sign in, hey, you're assigned to room number this, you go, you warm up a little bit, okay, time to go play, and you're on stage, you don't know how to sound, you show up. Stand there, no one says anything, there's the committee behind the screen, but they're there with you. You're not allowed to talk also. They have a rug so that they can hear if someone's wearing shoes or high heels or what, they cannot discern who's coming in. And you just play all these pieces that normally you're playing with a whole section of 12 and an orchestra with you. You're playing that part by yourself. And I can tell you, it's not like that music is designed to make you sound good on your own. It's music that's designed to sound good with 12 people, and you kind of rely on each other's sound and you build it together, and that's part of the magic of playing in section. Here you just, in this like cold, they'll hear every scratch, every little thing. And especially the first round of an orchestral audition is designed to hear your weaknesses. They want to sort out who is gonna crack, basically. They want to see who's gonna fall apart, especially in the first round. It's like an elimination round, honestly. And yeah, it's really tough. It's really nerve-wracking. Yeah.
When you do an audition, how much of the repertoire is predetermined for you based on who you are auditioning for, and how much is for you to decide what you want to perform?
Yeah, so 90% of it is going to be decided by the orchestra. They let you know in advance, you're going to play these symphonies, whatever's. And then at the very top, it will be choose one of these 3 concertos that you would like to play. And then probably there might be choose one of these Bach pieces that you would like to play. They always make you play Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, because he wrote these like really good words for solo string instruments, and they show a lot of your playing. So there's usually that. But yeah, 90% of it, I would say, yeah, it's predetermined. And then they let you choose from a set of pieces at the top. And then at the bottom, they might say, sight reading might be required at an audition. I've only had that happen to me once. So yeah.
How do you handle your anxiety before audition or the day of audition?
Yeah, I've now, after all the ones I've taken, I think my strategy for audition day is, and I realized this very recently, I have to eat so well that night. I cannot have like hotel breakfast, like fake scrambled eggs and bad maple syrup or some bad pancakes. I can't because I get hungry. So once you show up to the audition, you won't play until like maybe an hour and a half to 3 hours after you show up. And like I can bring food, but I find that it's so much better for me if I just have a healthy protein breakfast that will keep me full, have fruits in there too. That's essential now. It wasn't before. Now it is. It's just how it is, because your body will crash from being tired and being sitting in quiet rooms with 10 other people waiting. You have to be in a good physiological state, and then your nerves and everything, it just comes with experience. Unfortunately, even if you go to music school, I don't think you get enough opportunities to play live for people, and that's the true test and the true way to become. The only way to practice performing is to perform. So you have to push yourself to play for people. And like I said, I'm playing for someone at the BSO tomorrow, and the day after, and probably the next day also, because that will help me stay warm in a sense to keep. Because even if I feel like I sound good in the practice room, it's a completely different thing to show up and play in a quiet, dry room. You know? Yeah, at the top.
Thank you, that was great, and it was great listening to you. I'm Roy Solidarity, I'm the Executive Director for the University of Peru Belonging, and I don't have a question, because they're amazing questions that our students have posed, but I wanted to comment on something that I heard through your talk that I think is very important for our students to really cling on to that a little bit, and it's really the power of connections and the power of making, there were a lot of balls up thrown at you, very curveballs, as people say. And college experience is going to be different for everyone, and everything happens for a reason, as I like to say. So it was very interesting hearing how you came to those experiences, in part because of the influence and putting in on and listening to what some clinicians have to say that were either through family or through the work and professional experiences or college experiences that you were having. So I just wanted to comment on how key that was, because there's faculty here, there are people that work here at the institution, and there are people that our students are going to meet through their journey, including yourself. And that's important, how connected we are. Sometimes we don't realize it, and it's really key.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sometimes I find myself thinking, wow, I would never have thought that X person that I met one random day 10 years ago would be like one of my best friends now, or like suddenly offered me to play in this thing that came out really helpful for me and whatnot. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, and sometimes you have no control on things, but yeah, it's true. As long as you were like a sponge that can take things as they come and take everything that you can to benefit yourself and to make yourself grow, I think it's a good skill to have. To never discard anyone or anything that might be related to your field or what you work on. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
You want to take a look at the instrument on the way out of your lesson?
Yeah, you can.
But you can't touch it.
Yeah.
Those people are my next piano class.